thank you for the introduction. So my name is Augustin Laouar from Lyon, and today I'm really excited to share the work we have done on geolocation. So our work is about geolocation data and their impact on privacy. So our community has always agreed that location data has already been highly sensitive for privacy. It supports a wide range of use cases, so it is everywhere: navigation, asset tracking, security, etc. And they are produced at massive scale by private company, for example, Google or Apple. And they can be highly sensitive as they can reveal some habits, some your home or your work address, etc. So until now, so far, most of the research focused on how the location data are collected, used, or stored by services. But one dimension has received far less attention. This is location data production. And there is a lot of privacy risks that can emanate from location data production, but there is a very little work on this. And so far, I saw that there is only a few work, and they often focus on a single system. So many questions emanate from this: how the location data is produced, which actors are involved in, and what can they learn about each other. So to answer the previously presented question, we have a problem that most of the systems are very different. We have no common understanding of those geolocation systems. So we build an abstract model to understand how work this geolocation ecosystem. So what we call a geolocation ecosystem is the set of entities that are involved in the geolocation process. So let's try to understand what is our model to understand those geolocation ecosystems. So we will take the simple example of using an iPhone with maps, so Apple Maps. So first, we need the iPhone, obviously, which is the target of the geolocation process in our model. Then we have, obviously, Maps, which is a location-based services and has the role of consumer in our model. So, for example, the iPhone will use GPS to geolocate itself. So to do so, it will compute its distance to a set of GPS satellites with known position. So it will derive its own position from the position of the known satellites. So in the model, the satellites will have the role of reference points. So you have also other techniques that can be used for geolocation, for example, the Wi-Fi positioning system. So the iPhone will collect nearby SSIDs and query a big database to know their positions. And the database will simply send the associated position to the base SSIDs. So in that case, the iPhone will compute its own position in reference to Wi-Fi access points positions. So the Wi-Fi access points are reference points, and the database is what we call a reference resolver. So there is also other reference point that can be used, for example, cellular antennas or Bluetooth beacons, and we always have a reference resolver for those type of reference points. Okay, now that we have our model, we need some case studies. So we classified solutions based on two fundamental properties of the geolocation process. First is the geolocation active or passive. Active means the target is actively involved in the geolocation process, and passive means it's not. And the second dimension is allo versus ego geolocation. So allo means that the target is geolocated by another entity, and ego geolocation means the target geolocate itself. So each group of case study map to a real use case in the real world, and we selected a representative number of case studies for each use case. So we have finally 9 systems that we studied in this paper. So here is a little overview of the type of findings we have with our privacy analysis. So that finding, we showed that Apple and also Google are able to bypass the widely claimed end-to-end encryption in their offline finding networks. So let's take the example of trying to geolocate your AirTag, for example, with Apple Find My. So to geolocate the AirTag, you need some Apple devices near the AirTag, and so the AirTag will send some Bluetooth advertisement, and the iPhones, for example, in that case, will detect the advertisement and report it to Apple, and it will include its own position in the report. But its position is end-to-end encrypted, so only the owner of the AirTag can decrypt it. So normally, Apple is not able to see the position of the AirTag at the time of the detection. But in the meantime, in the same time, the iPhone will contact other Apple services for example, the reference resolver that we showed before. He will send, if he try to geolocate itself using a Wi-Fi positioning system, for example, it will have to send the BSS-IDs to Apple, so Apple will know where is the iPhone. We have also another service that is online finding. I won't spend too much time on it, but it also reveals the position to Apple. So if Apple correlates the timestamp at which the report was detected and also the timestamp of the request of the iPhone to those Apple services, they are able to retrieve the position of their AirTag at the time of the detection. And also Apple is able to retrieve the owner of the AirTag because you have to authenticate yourself to fetch the reports. So this is the type of findings we had. So what's more interesting than privacy threats is finding common causes, so the root causes of these threats. So as I showed before, the reference resolver continuously receives location data from users, and you can't do anything about this. We also show that Apple are able to bypass the end-to-end encryption of their offline finding networks. And in the paper, we also show that network providers, such as cellular providers or LP1 network providers like Sigfox, are able to identify and locate all of their users. So all of this comes from a common cause, which is that centralization creates inference power. Okay, so we show that we have common structural causes of threats for all these different systems, and we take a look at the existing defense mechanisms, and we found that there is still some gaps in comparison to what we found. So, for example, there is privacy mechanisms such as PEER, which are great, but they are not really scalable, so it's unusable for most of our use cases. Like the reference resolver, which are big database, it's impossible to use PEER with that type of database because it's too big and PEER is unscalable. So that won't work. And there is also, for example, simple mitigation that remain undeployed in practice. So that's the type of gaps, and we try to find some research direction, and we identified 3 big research directions. So first, since we cannot fix everything with cryptographic or technical solutions, we think that we have to make central actors auditable. For example, we have to know what Apple do with our location data. Second, since we have a lot of user control mechanism for application level, at the application level, I think we need to bring them down to the OS services, because so far we don't have any control on what OS services do with our location data, and we cannot stop them. We cannot change, for example, the reference resolver that we use with our iPhone. So we need more control on this. And finally, we need to make privacy mechanism practical, such as PEER, for example. We need to make it scalable so that we can use it with big database like reference resolver ones. So that was the conclusion. Thanks for your attention, and go take a look to the paper if you're interested. And I will be happy to take any question at the poster session. Thank you.